Hey everyone, just want to do a quick reminder I'm not a financial advisor of any kind. Please do your own due diligence and research before buying anything in the stock market. But the purpose of this video was to discuss another game related stock, and of course, that is Nintendo, ticker symbol NTDOY. Full disclosure, I do have a position in this company, and the purpose of this video is to describe why I entered a position with Nintendo. If you look at a monthly chart, you can see Nintendo not too bad. You see a fall from the high 30s to the low 30s, and a slight comeback, not too bad. But if you go out a little bit for a year look, you can see it's actually really awful. The stock was pretty much on the cusp of getting to the 60s about this time a year ago, and now it's stuck middling in the 30s. The rationale for the drop over that time is a few things, but the pessimism over the 20 million hardware sales figure for the Switch and the overall disappointment of Labo to move hardware. Labo did move some software, but as a good idea and good product to the kids, it just didn't catch on in terms of convincing people who would otherwise not to purchase a Switch. And another thing to mention as well, the drop kind of started in earnest, and the steep drop started around E3. Overall sentiment was that Nintendo did not present enough new titles or unannounced titles to kind of build up the hype to explain the 20 million hardware being sold, and people felt that there wasn't enough on the plate to warrant it, and a lot of investors bailed, kind of started a trend, and I don't think Nintendo's really recovered since E3 of last year. I think the stock's been kind of stuck, and it hasn't really come out of its rut. And so it's unfortunate because they come very close to getting that 20 million figure, and yes, it put a lot of pressure on Smash. And to be fair, Smash has done incredibly well. Smash has sold over 12 million units in its first month alone, making it the fastest selling game in Nintendo's history, which is an incredible feat to do. The Smash universe was not always considered to be, such a high pinnacle of sales or anything like that, but it's gotten more popular over time, and it blew out expectations. If you look at the other games in the series, how much it sold, this game's on track to blow everything out of the water for it. The Switch has proven, to me at least, to be a game system that really furthers IPs in terms of units sold. And I think that trend's going to continue with games like Animal Crossing. It's going to breathe new life into these games, and they're going to sell better than ever before, which is great for the stock. It's important to note that just because Nintendo might miss a little bit on the hardware side, they're going to more than make up for it in software, and they're going to be making a ton of money. And I think Smash is a great example of that, and not to include the DLC as well. There's a lot of DLC coming from future characters, and it's going to breathe even more, life into the game. It's not going to die out anytime soon. There's going to be tournaments. The game's going to continue, and it's going to continue making money for a very long time. At the end of the day, Nintendo is a game development company, and here's the list of the games, Nintendo Switch exclusives for 2019 and beyond. I'm not going to talk too much about the games that have already released, but the the most one that's coming up the most recently is Yoshi's Crafted World on March 29th. A demo was already released for the game, and it looks really promising in terms of a platformer. I don't think it's going to move a lot of units, but it is, looks like it's well polished, and if you played Woolly World on the Wii U, similar feel to that. Box Boy and Box Girl it started on the 3DS. It's a kind of like a puzzle game. It's almost like it's a downloadable game. It's not a retail game, but it is well done. And while I do think it will be good, I don't consider like a major release or anything like that. I kind of feel, it's just kind of like an in-between gap solution there. A major game on that list, I feel Super Mario Maker 2. Mario Maker on the Wii U, I feel is one of the best games on the system, and it utilized the gamepad perfectly. It allows you to create your own Mario levels and share them with the world. And it had a pretty strong following on Twitch and on YouTube, despite the fact that the Wii U was not a very successful or popular system. And with this going on to the Switch, and at the height of its popularity, I feel this gives a chance for the series to really shine and to really sell the way it really should be. The next game on that list would be Fire Emblem Three Houses. That game was supposed to come out in spring, which was delayed, which is pretty unfortunate. However, I do feel that the Fire Emblem series is a great, fantastic series, been mostly on handheld as of late. But, with the Wii U, it didn't really have a, Fire Emblem release, so I feel like this one is definitely going to fill a gap. that's sorely missing on the Switch. Astral Chain was actually just announced as a game by Platinum Games, and it looks really good. In terms of hands-on or anything like that, isn't a whole lot information about it, but it does look pretty promising. And that's a summer release with Daemon X Machina. That game was announced at E3 last year, and while I feel that it looks interesting, I'm not so sure there's enough content there to really warrant um, you know strong sales. I mean, it looks interesting. The other game on the list I want to talk about is Game Freak's other game called Town, which is due to come out in 2019. It was announced many months ago in a direct with some brief game footage shown. Not a whole lot's known about it, but I honestly feel it's going to get delayed until 2020. I just don't see it coming out this year with so little known about it, and the fact that it's not, I wouldn't consider like a hotly anticipated game or anything like that at this stage in the game. The next few titles on the list are definitely, very high on a lot of people's list, with Animal Crossing, Luigi's Mansion, and Zelda Link's Awakening was just announced in the latest direct, and of course Pokemon Sword and Shield, which was announced earlier this week. I feel that Animal Crossing, since it's been missing since the home console release, since the Wii, New Leaf was incredibly successful. Happy Home Designer was very successful as well. Animal Crossing has shifted to become a very strong and very potent franchise for Nintendo. Had its own, trading cards or, scanning cards as well for the 3DS. It's a huge franchise, and it makes it all the more painful that the app game, that camping game for the app was very disappointing. And a lot of people, it didn't catch on, and, it's a very strong IP, which I hope, with the Switch release, they utilize a lot of, features for the Switch to make it unique and to bring new life into the series. But that being stated, I do feel that E3 will be dedicated in a big part to Animal Crossing, just because there hasn't been any sort of information, footage, or anything shown whatsoever about it at all, beyond the game announcement itself. Luigi's Mansion as well, I feel it could be a big presence at E3, just because there's very little known about it. But that with the Zelda Link's Awakening was just announced, I think that was going, all those titles are going to move a ton of units. And Pokemon Sword and Shield, with the strength of the Pokemon franchise, all those, four games are definitely going to move units. If they all do indeed come out in 2019, it's a very strong lineup. And I think altogether, I think it will do better than just Smash. Smash is, while it's a hugely successful game, all these titles alone I think will work together and definitely, move the Switch to a very strong season that will match and I feel surpass this most current holiday shopping season. But if one thing that's kind of apparent in the list here is that there's definitely some gaps, some pretty strong gaps in between it, especially between the Yoshi game and the Mario Maker. There's some, about 2.5, 3 months of any major exclusives coming out for the Switch, which is a pretty strong, and I'm not including indie games really, anything like that, but there's a pretty strong gap there. And if the rumors are true that Nintendo and Microsoft are working together to bring the Game Pass over to the Switch, I feel like that's a huge benefit and a very strong way to boost Nintendo's drought periods between major releases, and given access to games like Cuphead and Oni and other games that are on the Game Pass service. I think that's hugely, beneficial to Nintendo. And it also will help Microsoft as well, because, Microsoft does not have a very strong at all base in Japan, and it will give access to Microsoft, getting some revenue from the Japanese people who would otherwise not have access to their games and, subscribe, which they would not have done any other way. So it's mutually beneficial, and if that is true, it would probably be announced at E3. Just looking at the potential catalysts for, outside of game releases to help Nintendo stock price, I do feel that the Detective Pikachu movie on May 10th will definitely give a boost. The movie did drop its second trailer this week, and the overall impressions or perceptions were really positive. It was number one trending for a few days, and people were really looking forward to it. I think it's done really well, and not that Pokemon needs to have any more, exposure in the forefront of people's minds or anything like that. It's still going to help, I think, bring people anticipating the next Pokemon game, and also downloading Pokemon Go or replaying Pokemon Go again while they wait for the next release. So I definitely see it being a definite positive. The next thing to talk about would be of course, the Universal Studios adaptation of the Mario or Nintendo franchises. There is no real timetable on that outside Japan's 2020 goal before the Olympics, but they will be bringing it to the United States, but there's no exact time frame or anything like that. I think it's a great use of the IP. I think it will help, further the brand, bring, increase loyalty, and of course, make additional money that Nintendo never had before into their, forecasting as well. And one other outlier I just kind of want to talk about, of course, is the Mario Kart World Tour app, which was delayed, unfortunately, from March to sometime summer, time release. I do feel that the delay, if they had to, is definitely warranted. Nintendo has not that great a history when it comes to apps, when it comes to their IP. Now, to be fair, you have to understand Nintendo is great at making video games, but making an app, not always the easiest or the same thing. You can have the best brands in the world and the great ideas, but you can still make an uninteresting or unappealing app game, and also a game that doesn't really bring in any revenue as well. So they have to hire get outside expertise for their app games, which they've done more so with Dragalia Lost and other future apps. It's just a matter of time before Nintendo kind of gets into their stride with app games and get into a groove. It will get there. Hopefully Mario Kart will spark the same interest as Pokemon Go once did. If it did, of course, the stock will go, follow the same suit as Pokemon Go and shoot up incredibly. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily believe that it's going to replicate that or anything. But to be fair, Mario Kart is one of those games that I feel has that universal appeal. And if it's done right, people will be playing it, and it definitely can catch on. It's just we know next to nothing about the game whatsoever, but if it's done right, it has the potential for a huge success. Overall, I do feel that sentiment among investors is kind of like it's going to be a meh reception. If you're investing Nintendo solely on the hopes of an app game, you're probably mistaken, but it could be a nice catalyst in the summertime that most people aren't factoring in. And overall, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to discuss. There's a few other factors. Of course, there's risks. There's always risks. Some risk I think included with Nintendo is that the 3DS, of course, the sales are declining. They could decline faster than expected. It's quite possible, depending on Nintendo's own forecasts of what they expect to sell and the amount of hardware. The 3DS is pretty much dead at this point. There's a few releases, but nothing much to keep it. It's on life support. It's not going to last. Mario Kart, if the app, of course, does not succeed, it could definitely bring down sentiment that Nintendo still doesn't know what to do with their apps. People want to see progress made with their revenue in the app game. So if it bombs, definitely would bring down the stock a little bit. If E3, of course, is disappointing this year, is definitely going to suffer like it did last year. And of course, delays. I mean, they've had some recent delays with Fire Emblem, Metroid Prime. So there's definitely a chance for more delays, and if that happens, of course, the stock price will suffer. But that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. Definitely, there's a lot more to talk about, but in future videos with Nintendo. But if you have any questions or any comments, definitely leave them. And thank you for watching.